This here Gambi. And I stole this episode of ToonCast just for you, Shan.
Beyond good, beyond evil, beyond your wildest imagination.
Hello and welcome to episode 33 of ToonCast Beyond, brought to you by Geekcast Radio Network and Audible.com. I'm your host, Steve J. Mike, and joining me is JT from Saskatoon. Hello.
And how are you?
I'm okay.
The allergies haven't taken you from us yet, Mike?
No, not yet. It's been a plague over the last 3 months.
Pox on you in your house?
Apparently. Today we're going to be talking about Fantastic Four, World's Greatest Heroes. Oh, God. Ugh. Alright, to set the stage for this, Fantastic Four, WGH, is an animated television series based on the Marvel Comics Fantastic Four comic book series and the movie itself. The series is the team's fourth foray into animation and combines two-dimensional art and three-dimensional computer animated, produced by the France-based animation company Moonscope. Ugh. I don't think I've ever... Scope, whatever. Whether it's an ice cream scoop or a scope mouthwash, it doesn't matter. Nothing can wash the bad taste of this show out of my mouth.
Oh, I don't disagree on that.
It is also produced by Moonscope Division Taffy Where do they come up with these fucking names? Taffy Entertainment.
It's a European company.
Oh my god. All in collaboration with Cartoon Network. In the United States, the show suffered an erratic airing schedule on Cartoon... Well, what show doesn't suffer an erratic airing schedule on Cartoon Network?
On any network.
Yeah. Having premiered as part of Toonami on September 2nd, 2006, but only running for 8 of the season's 26 episodes before being pulled without explanation, it returned to the network starting June 9th, 2007, shortly before the release of the film Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer. But again, only 9 further episodes were aired, leaving 9 installments unaired in the USA. The show aired on Boomerang for a brief time before moving to the Nicktoons network to air the final episodes. Episodes unaired in the US began airing in the Nicktoons network in the winter of 2009. Alright, so what are your first impressions on this show, sir?
Douchiest Johnny Storm ever.
What else?
I honestly, aside from that, and I wish they would have given an explanation why the cosmic radiation spray painted a 4 on the thing's chest. But aside from that, I really did dig this series. I thought it was a really well done, all things considered. Probably my favorite version of Mr. Fantastic in animation. I think they just kind of took the absurdity of the fact that this guy is a living pile of city putty and took it to the logical extremes. The character designs, I dug those. Sue Storm looked like she had a really long face, like not a horse face, but just kind of a long face. And yeah, I dug the series. I dug the fact that they kind of, sort of made it jibe with the Fantastic Four films because they referenced the space station accident and that's how they got their powers and all that. And overall, I like the series very much, except for one character. And I'm all for... Because the classic thing in the comic books, if you know Fantastic Four comic books at all, one of the greatest quote-unquote rivalries is the Fred and Barney of the Fantastic Four, the Thing, and the Human Torch. And Johnny and Ben have always been back and forth, pranking each other and picking on each other and all that, as they are wont to do. But when this show came out, and within the first 5 minutes, I wanted to smack this Johnny Storm about the head and shoulders with a 2x4 that said bag of oranges written on the side, because that's all that character deserves. But aside from my obvious rage at this character, I did love the series. And like I said, one of the best things about it is the fact that they do make it kind of line up with the movies. I mean, the fact in the episode where they introduced the puppet master as, he's the stepfather of, the Thing's girlfriend. He's gone to the beach trying to find clay to mold stuff with, and the Fantastic Four is there basically to pick up some junk from the space station that irradiated them. And this gives the puppet master his powers. And from then on, it was a great show. And again, like you were saying in the description there, yeah, this thing's sporadic as all hell. Like, I watched it on Teletoon here in Canada, also on YTV sometimes.
Right.
But it's just, yeah, it wasn't just sporadic, it was schizophrenic.
Yeah. The series is on Netflix. I've seen, I think, like the first 2 or 3 episodes. I haven't seen a lot of this show. But yeah, you're right. Just that one character development or lack of character development there, and the ultimate douchebaggeriness and dickery of Johnny in this series, just it takes all the fun out of it. It really does, because the whole point of Ben versus Johnny is it's lighthearted fun with issues.
It's good-natured back and forthness.
It
they're
is,
brothers,
but there are
is
also
what they are.
right. But there are also between Johnny and Ben, there are also issues that are rooted deep in there with Ben specifically about, he doesn't want to be this monster. He wants to be Ben Grimm again.
Yeah.
Johnny, he has to live up to, Reed and Sue and all that stuff, so he's got his own issues. But I mean, the back and forth has never been about one or the other just being a complete douchebag to each other.
Yeah, there's been, like, in the comic books, there's been how many things over the years, and this is one of my favorite, the relationships in a comic book,
right?
Is Johnny and Ben. I mean, one of my favorite things from a few years ago was an issue drawn by this guy, Mike Wieringo, who sadly passed away, where it's basically the whole issue is back and forth between Ben and Johnny, and Ben spray paints basically a hot air balloon with his face, fills it full of water, and tosses it off the roof of the Baxter building onto a sun-tanning Johnny. They never had something that was funny and, like, dare I say, lovable like that. No, it's basically Ben pranks Johnny, and then Johnny is just a constant dick to Ben.
Yeah.
And I would give this thing a full 2 thumbs up, if not for the fact that Johnny is such a raging, arrogant a-hole.
Yeah. Exactly.
But there are times when even Reed gets in and gives Johnny a little comeuppance in a couple episodes where he pimps out Johnny's hot rod with, like, flowers and bubbles coming out the exhaust pipe, and I'm just like, yes, suck it. But aside from the Johnny hate, which I could talk forever on that, it's this episode, like I said, this show, because it's more or less loosely based within the movie universe of Fantastic Four, does basically movie versions of many of the characters that have been associated with the FF, like the Puppet Master, the Mole Man, Impossible Man, Doctor Doom. Looks like he's 9 feet tall and as thin as a supermodel, but it's more so the fact that this is like the traditional Doctor Doom with the scarred face and not the living metal Doctor Doom that they made him in the movie. And they had Iron Man show up, they had Hulk, Ant-Man, they had some heroes show up. They brought in the Fightful Four, which is the classic evil version of the Fantastic Four with the Wizard and Dragon Man and all that. I mean, They did. There are a lot of nods to classic FF mythology, but not just pretty much from the comic books and like reimagined from the comic books. There wasn't really anything that harkens back to like the '94 series or anything else. It's pretty much movie universe with comic elements.
Yeah. So is this supposed to be like was this series intended to be a bridge between FF1 and Rise of the Silver Surfer?
I don't think so. I think the mainly, like I said, how it's kind of loosely based within the movie timeline. It's basically drafting on the fame of the original film because this came out just before, or just after.
Came
Uh,
out came out just before Rise of Silver
yeah,
Surfer.
so it could be seen as a bridge, but not an explicit bridge. Like I said, it's kind of in the movie universe,
Right.
or you could say it's in a comic universe with movie elements, something like that. It's basically, like I said, it's just kind of drafting on the hype and the media from
Yeah.
the first film.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, all in all, I mean, like the character designs for a lot of the for everybody, I love. Like I liked Ben. They gave him this very Hulk like body, which translates he's basically walking around in like super sweatpants all the time, which I thought was kind of cool instead of seeing him walk around in swimming trunks. And I love the fact that he doesn't really wear shoes except when he's in like his jersey. And I love the fact that when you give him clothes, it doesn't look comical. It's like designed to his size, and he's got like size quadruple E54, whatever his foot size is. He's got basically like Nikes in his size, which and I guess that kind of goes towards the character wanting to feel normal and human, so he can actually uh, do normal things somewhat. I mean, they did have an episode where he gets reverted to normal Ben, but like in the comics and in the movie, he chooses to, sacrifice his happiness for his family.
Right. Yeah.
The only thing, like aside from that, the only thing I don't, why did they have to spray paint a 4 on his chest? Like, we know it's the Thing. We know he's part of the Fantastic Four. Just because everyone else has a 4 on their chest is like, hey, let's just put paint on them. It'll be hip, and the urban kids will get it.
Well, see, yeah, I don't get that either because at least with the movie, when they did that, they gave him pants, and the 4 was on his pants.
Yeah, and which is a lot of some of the comics have been like that. I mean, the most traditional thing in the comics was to wear the pants and boots with like a wife beater made out of unstable molecules with the 4 in the middle, or he wears like his BVDs with the 4 on the waistband. So again, that's probably the only the nitpickiest thing I can say about the Ben redesign is the fact that they spray paint the 4, but they still give him like the traditional, the classic, interlocking bricks basically.
Right, yeah, yeah.
And to speak about Johnny without flying into a blind rage, I did dig the Johnny redesign because they're trying to make this a little more hip, a little more modern. So they gave him like the sideburns and the spiky hair, and he looks like Johnny should. Sue, slim, and you would maybe not notice her. So they kind of work elements of that. Mr. Fantastic, like I said, he's probably my favorite version of Mr. Fantastic of all the different animated versions I've seen because
Right.
he does like the crazy stretching. Got the kind of shag hair, but he's still got the grandpa white on the side. The one character that I loved right away from the redesign was Herbie. Now, quick cartoon history, you probably know this, a lot of the listeners might not, was the 1970s FF series, because the popular rumor was they put Herbie in there instead of Johnny because parents were afraid kids were going to light themselves on fire, which actually isn't true. They were trying to spin Johnny off into his own animated series at the time.
Right, yeah.
So,
And see, that's what I thought. Kind of jumping ahead to what we'll talk about next week. That's what I thought they were going to do when I saw him pop up, because he popped up in the '90s. He popped up in Spider-Man first, didn't he? In Spidey '94, he popped up in that show first before the Fantastic Four cartoon came out, didn't he?
No, because in
Or,
the
or,
in,
or,
in
or,
the
or were
FF
they running
'94.
at the same time? I don't
Well,
remember.
yeah, I know. I'm pretty sure Herbie showed up in Spidey '94, but I think
No,
F.
no, no, not Herbie, Johnny.
Oh,
Because you said that they wanted Johnny to spin off into his own series. That made me think
oh yeah.
that he guessed it on Spidey first, and then the '94 series of FF came out, and that's why I was thinking, oh well, in the '90s he almost got his own series as well.
No,
Yeah,
that was just that episode. No, in the '70s, and I'm not saying Johnny Storm isn't a popular character. It's just I don't see how he was that. I mean, the Thing had his own cartoon alongside the FF in the '70s, but that was that where he's like this Benji Grimm, and he's like this skinny kid, and he's got these magic rings that turn him into
oh my
the
god.
rock-faced gremlin. Just look it up on YouTube, and you'll be horrified later. No, but the Herbie redesign. Get back to the cartoon we're talking about. The Herbie redesign in this is an AI that Mr. Fantastic has created that runs the lab in the Baxter Building.
Right.
And that's one of the cool things about the Baxter Building too. It's like the first 20 or 30 floors is normal office building, and then everything else turns into this Star Trek-esque white, you know, abomination. One of my friends is called that's what he calls the redesign of the Baxter Building in this, with the big holographic Fantastic Four on the top. But no, I like the fact that Herbie's in there and he's this AI, and he is a part of the show, but he isn't. He wasn't thrown in there the way Herbie was in that '70s cartoon.
Yeah. Huh. All right, so getting into the cast, I'm going to run down the list here again. A bunch of people, majority of these people, I think maybe four of them I know. You have Hiro Gawa, I don't know, as Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. Lara Gilchrist. Oh, that's a.
Gilchrist.
No, it's Gilchrist.
Well, it's written like that, but I believe it's pronounced Gilchrist.
Oh.
Whatever.
As Invisible Woman, Christopher Jaquet as Human Torch, Brian Dobson as the Thing, Samuel Vincent as Herbie, Paul Dobson as Doctor Doom, Sunita Prasad as Alicia Masters. Guest cast includes Michael Adamthwaite.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, Don Brown, Trevor Duvall, Michael Dobson, Paul Dobson, Brian Drummond, Laura Drummond, Andrew Cavadas, Mark Gibbon, Jonathan Holmes, David Kaye as Tony Stark Iron Man. I have to watch this series just for that, to see David Kaye voicing Tony Stark. Holy shit. Terry Klassen as Impossible Man, Scott McNeil as Annihilus, Colin Murdoch. Oh my god, how'd they land him? Peter New, John Novak, Mark Oliver, John Payne, Alvin Sanders, Rebecca Shoichet, no clue, Venus Terzo, Lee Toker, and Samuel Vincent as Trapster and Peter Parker. I like the voice cast. Again, like a couple of weeks ago when we talked about Iron Man, at least for the main four, it's pretty much unknown to me. I don't think I'm Brian Dobson. I think I've heard him before, but the other ones, it's like no clue.
Yeah, well, I mean, Brian and Paul Dobson have been.
Yeah,
They've been here and there in pretty much
everywhere.
every anime. Yeah, they've been
Yeah.
here, there, and everywhere. Hiro Kanagawa. I'm not even gonna
Yeah,
butcher his
don't
name.
even.
He was Principal Quan on Smallville for a couple of years.
Oh. Sure.
And I love the way he played Mr. Fantastic. He played him as the classic Mr. Fantastic, the very absent-minded. He's
Right.
having a nice conversation with Sue, and then the strayest thought goes through his mind. I know how to turn the Baxter Building invisible, and then he'll wander off into his own private world, and Sue's just like, oh Jesus. Laura Gilchrist as Sue Storm. Like, all the voices were serviceable, like I said, and I'm not blaming Christopher Jaquet completely for the douchebaggery,
No, it's the writers.
but it's half his fault too, because he gave voice to the douchebaggery, which is one of the main, like, the writers, they wrote it like that, but he sells it way too well. I know I keep coming back to this, but biggest dick ever. This Sanina Prasad, who did Alicia Masters, like one of the main things, kind of like how they had Michael Clark Duncan play Kingpin in the Daredevil movie. A lot of people were crying havoc when they made Alicia Masters black, played by Kerry Washington in the movie.
Yeah.
And I come with that, I was like, what's the problem? Like, it's an
I didn't
actress.
see
Like, you're that judgmental about skin color?
Well, and
It's
see, the thing is, not to be punny here, but the thing is about the movies is that it's not that she's different because she's black. It's different because she's blind. That's the difference I got. Where Thing, he pretty much in comic history and cartoon history and also in the movies, he sees himself as a monster. Everybody sees him as a monster. She doesn't.
I don't. Well, yeah. I mean, it's not everybody see, but yeah,
Well, right, but
The
I'm
thing
I'm,
is that
I'm
he
generalizing.
sees himself as a monster, as undeserving of having, even the merest shred of happiness, which is
Right.
one of the main reasons why Ben Grimm's like up there in my favorite Marvel characters of all time.
Yeah.
Because this guy has got this, what he sees as an unbearable curse, like a punishment for some sort of past sin, and it's just. And that's what the other thing too about the Fantastic Four is with the Things. My favorite in there is because everyone else can turn their power off, and
You
how he
can't.
hasn't flown into a blind rage at some point in the history of the comics is like, I hate you guys, because I mean, from day one they could all turn it off,
Yeah.
and he's stuck like this. So yeah, I can see that. But no, I mean, and it's kind of like I said, like how Michael Clark Duncan, not because he's black, but he's really the only actor in Hollywood that they could have had the sheer physical size to play the
Well,
character of the Kingpin, who's like this
right.
mountain of muscle. But yeah, but like having Kerry Washington as Alicia in the movies is kind of like having Idris Elba as Heimdall in the Thor movie, and everyone was like, blasphemy! He's a white god! He's an alien from another realm of existence, and I don't think skin color really matters.
Yeah,
But yeah,
exactly.
but no, I like the fact that they reflected that change again, which more locks it into the movie universe,
Right, right.
with having a black woman in the cartoon, and the same thing with her stepfather as the puppet master. And yeah, a lot of these names don't recognize a lot of them except for the Dobson brothers, and you know, my boy Scott McNeil.
Yeah, Scott
Oh,
McNeil, David Kay. I also recognize Michael Donovan's name too, so
yeah, and so
my
I mean, yeah, they got a really decent Lee Tokers in here
yeah,
again as Terminus. But yeah, all in all, solid voice cast.
yeah. So let's get into the plot of it. I find I find this funny that apparently only the opening narration for the international version of the series provides a quick rundown of the team's origin. When top scientist Reed Richards led his team of explorers into space, they were blasted by a shower of cosmic rays. Endowed with the incredible powers, their lives were changed forever as they became the Fantastic Four.
Yeah, but
Supposedly, that's only in the international version.
well, then we got a few episodes of the international version in Canada because, like I said, I watched it on both Teletoon and YTV when it aired.
Well, you guys are technically considered international, even though you're in North America.
Yeah,
You're not in the U.S., so they do.
yeah,
Even though it's still Region One, I'm sure they still considered it international.
yeah. But I mean, it's like literally you would go like take 12 episodes in, you know, 3 months time, like one episode every Saturday, which is when I watched it.
Right.
Uh, Out of that 12, it would go like 2 episodes with no narration, then one episode with 4 episodes with no narration, then three with, so it was like I said, schizophrenic. But yeah, no, that I would have liked. I kind of liked it better without that narration because you see them in their spacesuits getting into the shuttle, the accident on the space station,
Yeah.
and the theme song. Just to speak about that quickly, I really with that da 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 da, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It kind of had this kind of a throwback to '60s theme songs, little jazzy sort of sound like that. And I really dug that. I thought it worked really well for the idea. It's the Fantastic Four. So
Right. Yeah. I don't know. I don't. It depends on what the show is. I know people are gonna hate me for this, but when I see shows that do narration and then don't do narration, the first thing I think of is Power Rangers, because Power Rangers sometimes, specifically Ninja Storm and Samurai, sometimes they're Samurai more specifically the current series. Sometimes there's an intro with narration, sometimes there's not, and it's like make up your fucking mind. Do it either way, but I don't know. So yeah, is there any stories or any of the plot that you really want to go over?
well, really the only episode that there's a couple episodes. There was the Hard Knocks episode 7, which
Mm-hmm.
was the Hulk episode, which one of the classic things in the comics was always who's stronger, Ben or the Hulk.
Right. Yeah.
And they even ended as like Ben's like, I was holding back, and next time I'm gonna kick your ass.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's they had stuff like that. There was the Puppet Master episodes were actually really cool. The first one was okay. It was basically the introduction. The second one was where he's in prison and he's had like basically he made a set of dentures out of the clay. So in prison he starts making a mold of the warden, and he starts making figurines of all these other people, and eventually he organizes this anti-Fantastic Four mania throughout the city, and just to get revenge. And I love the fact that he starts off as this bitter sculptor. In the span of like a month or two, he's become like this Machiavellian puppet master like this. The Frightful episode, which introduced the Frightful Four as these new heroes, I really dug that because, again, it's a classic concept of FF cartoon history. Uh, All-time favorite episode I'll get to. My number one, second favorite is The Cure, where Reed cures Ben. You see them, they're going Captain Ultra and Spider-Man, all these Squirrel Girl, and all these other characters are trying to fill that slot, and they eventually bring in She-Hulk.
Yeah.
And they have this great scene where Johnny's like taking shots at her when she's still Jen Walters, and then she hulks out, and he's just like, ah! and wets his trousers. But my absolute favorite episode, because it's I wouldn't say perfect, but it is a great representation of one of the classic FF stories, is Doomsday Plus One, where Doombots latch themselves onto the Baxter building and they launch it into space. And it's been made fun of so many times throughout the years, especially in like Wizard Magazine's Toy Fair magazine used to have this Twisted Toy Fair Theater, which is a comic strip using Migos, and they're always making jokes of, all those Baxter buildings that are in space are going to land eventually. So that's my all-time favorite episode because it was just a great, fun episode. And, because they have like this bitchy, prudish neighbor of theirs that lives in the building. And they have this great joke when there's basically about 15 people in Reed's lab, and they're like, that's it? And then Reed's like, well, the constant supervillain attacks have really driven down tent numbers. It's just, that's one of my favorite, because it takes this classic piece of FF history and represents it so well. And I think other than that, the Annihilus episode was fun. And the Contest of Champions, which is way towards the end of the run of the series,
Right. Yeah.
was a lot of fun too. But yeah, all-time favorite was Baxter Building in space. So, how about you? What's some of your faves?
Like I said, I need to go back and watch the whole series. I've only seen like the first 3 episodes, so I just from everything that we've talked about today, it's making me want to actually watch the series. Initially, going into this podcast, I thought, "Oh God, another shitty remake of a cartoon."
Yeah.
Great, you know. But because what I equate this to with, and this is just me being whatever, I equate this with evolution. As far as me growing up in the '90s, watching X-Men '92, and then 2003 happened and X-Men Evolution happened. Whereas same thing with Fantastic Four '94. I grew up watching that, and I liked it to a certain extent. I never really paid that much attention to Fantastic Four '94, but I liked it here and there. And the same thing with this. It was like, oh God, really? They're doing this? But
Yeah.
no, I mean, just from what we've talked about today, it's making me want to go back and watch the rest of the series. Like I said, I have seen like the first 3 episodes on Netflix.
Yeah.
Um,
Like I said, or like I should say, douchebaggery aside,
right,
this is a really good series.
right. All right. So, how does the show stack up? Obviously, to other shows within the same franchise. '94 is the only cartoon we can compare it with. I
Well,
guess we could compare it to the movies, but
I would say you could take FF 94 and this. It's a bit of a stretch, but you can also kind of compare it to the FF from the 60s. I
right,
mean, granted, those were really simple stories, more or less just took the plots of the episodes from the comic books, the very, very early FF comic books, which are some of my favorite in the entire history of Fantastic Four. But yeah, it's most comparable to FF 94. And, like Iron Man, FF 94 was a lot better in the second season. And that's really the second season. You can compare that up against this, and it stacks up. I think World's Greatest Heroes is a lot better in a lot of respects. Story, animation, all that.
right, yeah. So, what show in the same genre in the superhero genre would you equate this to?
Uh, well, like you said, you can stack it up against Evolution, and you could. I'd throw it against Evolution and the Hulk. It's not quite up around Batman or Justice League, but I think you could throw it up against the Superman series. Just
Right,
in the whole, it's like those World's Greatest Heroes and the Superman TAS really captured the kind of silver age-ness of comic books, and just like they were fun and they were not too dark and not too light, and they're just a lot of fun to watch. So I would definitely throw it up against Superman.
yeah. Um, what I would assume FF '94 is the only one from a previous decade that it would stack up against or be
Yeah,
comparable to.
but
So
like I said, it'd be a stretch to compare it against the one from the '60s. But
yeah,
it's while I love that show, it kind of pales in comparison.
it loses it over the years.
Well,
Like,
yeah, I mean, you got to have a love because that's coming from Hanna-Barbera
oh
and that
my
very
god,
simple animation in the '60s. But I still love that show. But you'd be a fool and a communist to try and stack it up against this series.
right? Yeah, yeah. All right. So being the IGN replacement crew, 0 to 4, what do you give this?
I'm gonna give it a 4 because I want to pick up the collection, and I definitely think if you're an FF fan, if you're a Marvel movies and animation fan, you should definitely add this to your collection.
Yeah, I'm gonna give it a low to a high 3, but more so on the Netflix side because it is on Netflix here in the U.S. Um, like I said, I do want to go back and kind of get into it and see if the douchebaggery doesn't take away my enjoyment of it. As far as DVDs, volumes 1, 2, and 3 were released here in the U.S. There was also a complete first season that was released, so that has all 26 episodes from the first season, so there's that. Um, we are going to take a break, and we'll be back after this.
Hello, nurses. and friends of nurses. Yakko Warner here, and you're listening to a podcast on the GeekCast Radio Network. Lucky you.
Like animation? Come listen to Animation Aficionados.
And if you disagree with us, you could be a guest on a future show.
Available on iTunes, the Zune Market, and animationaficionados.com.
Hey, Chuck. Hey, what's up, Ryan? You know how we talked about doing a podcast? Well, I have some ideas run past you.
Yeah, what do you got?
I thought we should base it on comics.
Well, there's thousands of podcasts about comics. You kind of want to narrow it down a bit.
Well, what about Star Wars?
Still, there's a ton of those out there. What else you got?
We could always do G.I. Joe comics.
There's still a ton of those out there.
What about the 80s franchises?
There's already a few of those as well.
Then let's forget about comics. Let's focus on toys and action figures.
Dude, then we're back to thousands of podcasts.
Well, is anyone covering all those things I mentioned in one podcast?
No one would be crazy enough to do that.
Then that's what we'll do.
You serious?
Yep. Come and listen to Star Joe's podcast. You can find us at starjoes.com or find us on iTunes.
Yeah, we cover comics, TV shows, and movies based on Star Wars, G.I. Joe, and all your 80s favorite franchises.
And don't forget about the toys.
How could we forget about the toys? We also do toy reviews to help you decide what to add to your collection.
So come listen to Star Joe's, where we hold nothing back, provide quality entertainment, and remember, the Force will be with you.
Because knowing us is half the battle.
Yo, Joe!
Hey, I'm Gary.
I'm Mike.
I'm Chuck.
And I'm Justin. Join the four of us every week on the internet's #1 and longest-running G.I. Joe podcast, What's on Joe Mind?
It's Joe news, reviews, and interviews like you've never heard them before, delivered right to your MP3 player.
Our guests include Jason Marsden, Kevin Michael Richardson, and Matt Yang King from G.I. Joe Renegades, Larry Hama, Robert Adkins, and John Barber from IDW Publishing, and many more from around the online Joe community.
Yeah, it's guys talking about Joe. Think of it as Joe Talk meets Sports Talk. And we make fun of Chuck.
Right, and we... Hey, again?
Come on, Chuck. We're just kidding, kinda.
Sometimes Chuck makes fun of himself.
Right, and we... Okay, seriously, this is just getting ridiculous now.
It's What's on Joe Mind, every week on the GeekCast Radio Network, InsidePulse.com, Stitcher Smart Radio, and iTunes. Download and listen today.
I suppose I still can't say something about Transformers, can I?
Good.
No. What about sports?
That sounds good.
Yeah, that's all right.
Is this thing on? Oh, goody. Why, hello there. It's your dear old Uncle Joker here. I bet you're asking yourself, what could I be possibly doing here of all places? Well, I'm laughing at the fact that this new podcast presented by GeekCast Radio is called Legends of the Dark Knight. Who the heck knew the Bat was so popular? Ugh. Join Steve, Mike, and sometimes Tara for reviews on the greatest DC animated universe cartoon to ever meet Gotham City. So join moi for the talk of the town, or I'll send Captain Clown after you. He gets mighty angry when he doesn't get to have his garbage skull. So put on a nice big smile and join us for the next GeekCast Radio Network podcast, Legends of the Dark Knight.
Are you a fan of gaming? Then check out GCRN's first ever gaming podcast, Extreme Retro Gaming. It's your one-stop shop for emulation, retro, and modern gaming. Hear talk on your favorite games from classic consoles of the current day. The show will feature one-shots on a single game every single episode, so stay tuned in for Extreme Retro Gaming. Only on the GeekCast Radio Network.
We are back, and for you, the listeners of ToonCast Beyond, Audible is offering a free audiobook download with a free 30-day trial to give you the opportunity to check out their service. Use audibletrial.com/GeekCastRadio. So, final thoughts on World's Greatest Heroes, sir?
It's a solid animated series. I like the redesigns of many of the characters. The stories they don't beat you over the head into submission. And I think we all know what I would like to say. I've said it so many times, and I had an almost 5-minute rant earlier in the episode. So I think it's just better left unsaid.
Poor Johnny Storm.
What a dick!
Yeah, just throughout our entire conversation here, I usually try to watch everything that I'm going to podcast about. In the last 2 weeks, I just didn't have time. Between being sick constantly over the last month and a half and everything else I've had to watch, I just haven't had time. From what I have seen of Fantastic Four: World's Greatest Heroes, it does look like a pretty good series, and I am going to go back and watch it later. So maybe when we do the season wrap up here on ToonCast Beyond here in a couple weeks, maybe I'll have more to say about the series then. So.
Yeah. No, I mean, and as far as the DVD goes, I mean, it's on Netflix. But again, this is a series that I actively would like to get like the physical copy.
Right.
I know. It's like the argument could be made. Well, it's on Netflix, and you can just watch it there. And I mean, comic books are going digital. Why pay money at the store? There's something about having it in your hand.
Right. You're right. But I'm saying, like I said a couple weeks ago with Iron Man, if it's something that people should watch right now, if it's a series that you need to watch right now and it's on Netflix, that's a good option. I'm not saying don't buy the DVD. Of course, go buy the DVD if you want to get it. That's fine. I'm just saying that it is on Netflix, and that is probably your best option to just try it. I mean, hell, the way I look at Netflix is... Well, the way I look at Netflix with any show, you're already paying the $8.23, $8.33, whatever the additional tax is. You're already paying the $8 a month, so it's like you're getting the show for free because you're paying the $8 anyway. So you might as well just at least try it once. And if you say, "Oh, hey, I'd like to watch this more, but I don't want to watch it on Netflix," then you go out and buy the DVD.
No, I agree with you, Mike. So.
Thank you for joining us here on ToonCast Beyond. There are some ways to get in contact with us to leave feedback for the show. Visit the website, geekcastradio.com. You can comment on each and every episode post. Leave the show's feedback in iTunes. Please do this. Follow us on Twitter. The show name there is ToonCast Beyond. Mine is TF2 and Mike. What is your Twitter?
At JT from Saskatoon.
Become a fan on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/geekcast or Radio Network. Call the voicemail line. Tell us the show you're leaving the message for and your name. 502-526-5821. If you have your own USB headset or microphone on your own computer, go to the website. Go to the right-hand side. There's a button that says Send Voicemail Now, and you can do it right from your computer. We hope you enjoyed this episode of ToonCast Beyond and wish you'll join us next time when we will be jumping back in the DeLorean one last time with Fantastic Four 1994. For now, I am TF2 and Mike with...
JT from Saskatoon.
Thank you for listening. Until next time.